Well, welcome to the Group X podcast, mate. It's good to see you face to face.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited. Yeah, I've done a little bit of my research and I've found out a little bit more about you since you and I originally had a bit of a chat a couple of weeks ago. But
All good, I'm sure.
Look, it's what's online. It's got to be true. What I'd love is for you to tell us a little bit about you, how you got into the industry. Where does your journey kick off?
Sure. So my name is Will Brereton. I'm the founder of SH1FT Fitness, which is a instructor-led B2B group fitness provider. So I can get more into that later and talk to you about kind of why we created it. But I guess I'll roll right back to the start. So as you might be able to tell from my accent, I'm a Kiwi. So I'm from Christchurch in New Zealand. I started my fitness journey at the University Rec Centre. And because Les Mills is so dominant within New Zealand, within about 6 months, because I was good at it and I loved it, I had joined Les Mills Christchurch and started teaching there. So basically, Bevan, who I've seen has been on your podcast,
Yes.
really good friend of mine. Bevan was sort of the god of body attack at that time, and I was taking his class, and you weren't allowed to go into body attack. You had to start with body circuit, which was a New Zealand only. It never went international, but basically you had to cut your teeth on body circuit before you were even allowed to do the module for body attack.
Wow.
So, yeah, started with that, and then so taught at Les Mills Christchurch. So I'm a lawyer by training. I was at law school. I was playing rugby and working in retail. And then I started doing, over the summer, I started doing teaching. And then I gave up rugby in my second year because I kept getting injured. And if I got injured, I wasn't able to teach and I couldn't earn money. So it was basically my part-time job while I was at law school. And then when I graduated, moved to Auckland to work for Russell McVeigh, which is a private practice law firm. I was an intellectual property lawyer there, and then moved to Les Mills Auckland, where I was teaching, and then was lucky enough to be mentored by Lisa Osborne in Body Attack and Mark in Body Step, and ended up doing a number of DVDs, as they then were, a number of videos for Les Mills. Before I eventually, after sort of a couple of years living in Auckland, I decided to do my OE. So I moved to London, where I worked in-house as a lawyer at ITV. So people will know ITV from Downton Abbey and all that sort of stuff. So I was a TV lawyer. And then I was a young 25-year-old, and I was a TV lawyer Monday to Friday. And then on a Friday night, I would, working for Les Mills, like fly to Spain or fly to France and do like a weekend workshop or a weekend of presenting or a quarterly workshop. And then I would fly back on Sunday night and go back to work on Monday morning. And so I basically saw half of Europe initially through Les Mills and flying off and presenting in my programs. Looking back, like, I don't know where I got the energy from because I was literally like getting back on a Sunday night at midnight into Gatwick, catching a train home and then being at work 8 o'clock the next morning. Actually, that's a lie. People start late in the UK. So I was at work by 9:30. Yeah, so I did that for a few years, and then, or probably like 2 years, and then the GFC hit, and everything got a lot harder, and so it wasn't as easy to kind of fly away and do it. Some of the money dried up from some of the agencies. So I was working as a lawyer and still working for the UK agency, and then when Les Mills and FitPro, who were their distributor in the UK, when they decided to end their relationship, I was really close to a lot of the people working at Les Mills International. They knew I was a lawyer and had a business background as well as knowing the company really well. So I joined to help set up Les Mills UK with Jill Tattersall, who was the former CEO of Les Mills International. So Jill and I worked together, and I was her kind of head of business affairs. So I was doing all the legal stuff. We were transferring a lot of contracts from gyms, from FitPro over to Les Mills. So I was managing that process, and so I got to understand a lot of the pain points that gyms have with Les Mills and with group fitness provision generally during that time. And then I was kind of the glue. So I helped Jill with her recruitment of Keith, who was the CEO of Les Mills UK. And he is now the CEO of Les Mills. Les Mills, he's basically one of the CEOs that works directly under Clive. So he's still with the company. Okay. And I was kind of the knowledge bridge for him because I obviously knew the company inside and out. And then at the end of that year, I essentially pretty much got headhunted by Beachbody. Who at the time were in partnership with Les Mills. So they were doing Les Mills Pump and Les Mills Combat, which was at the time Les Mills' first foray into B2C. It was before on demand really existed as a consumer product. So I got headhunted by Beachbody, and then Beachbody and Les Mills had a unceremonious breakup, and I'd kind of walked across that bridge, and so I was then working for the competitor. So I was at Beachbody for a couple of years. I was part of the team that basically turned Insanity and P90X and Plyo and some of the really big Beachbody products into group fitness formats.
Sweet.
That was my first introduction to the instructor licensing model. So we followed the Zumba model versus the Les Mills model. We didn't charge gym licenses. Worked there for a couple of years, and then I was sort of head of international for Beachbody Live, which was the instructor training. And then they decided that they were going to double down their efforts on focusing on the United States rather than international expansion. And I was obviously not in the United States. I sort of had the opportunity to maybe move over there. I didn't want to. So I decided that I was going to start my own thing. So in 2016, started SH1FT Fitness. We started as bodyweight format only. The goal was to solve some of the problems that I'd seen at Les Mills and Beachbody. And they weren't problems in the sense that they were things that either company had done wrong. It was just that by that point, technology and industry had moved to a point where, like, for example, everyone was starting to use their smartphones. So I was like, I don't see why you would make notes and DVDs and CDs and send them out physically, because I also knew the business side of it, right? So I knew there was a high cost attached to that. So I was like, I think I can create a format that is digital only, that goes straight to your phone, that cuts out all those production costs. And by cutting out the costs, I can charge a way lower fee, because the reality is that instructors hadn't got paid a single pay rise since I started in 2000. And this is in 2016. I'm like, I see where this is going, because I had such a good knowledge of what gyms business P&L sheets look like. I understood that like gyms don't not pay instructors well because they don't want to. They do want to. It's just that they don't really have the free cash to do that. They have to spend on other things. There's arguments about whether or not they see the value in instructors. I think that most gyms would like to pay their instructors more if they could. It's just that, we could talk about this forever, but with the introduction of budget chains in the mid sort of 2010s to 2020s, it just meant that there was a race to the bottom in terms of what you had to do for membership fees. Whole nother story. But anyway, I was like, instructors are never going to get paid more. So what I can do is I can provide them with a low cost, high quality alternative that they can teach anywhere, meaning that once they train with us and they get the content from us, they can make as much money as they can, but they can spend as little as possible. And also we created this one of a kind instructor app that means that they don't basically have to memorize anything either. So did that, and then launched it in 2017, and no one got it. In that instructors were like, but where are my notes and where's my CD? And I'm like, well, you don't need notes and CD. And they're like, and where's my quarter release? And I'm like, well, we actually release something every month. And they didn't really get it. And then the pandemic happened, and everyone, or the instructor industry, all upskilled themselves on technology, and they were like, "Oh my god, this thing's amazing! Why haven't you said this before?" And I was like, "We've been around. We didn't change our business model in the slightest." I had an idea that things would eventually catch up. I didn't know that there would be such a hurdle to getting people to understand what we did at the start. But fortunately, or unfortunately, the pandemic was obviously a really shitty time for the whole fitness industry. But the good thing for us is that it sped up digital adoption, meaning that people no longer had a knowledge gap on what we were providing. The other good thing is that, like with other formats, there are a lot of issues around whether or not you could teach online, whether or not you could pre-record. That was a big pain point for instructors. Our model had always been teach it anywhere. We can talk about it later, but like we have a music provider that is rights included. That is a companion to all of our workouts, but you can use whatever music you want. So a lot of instructors found themselves in the pandemic not able to teach what they were already teaching. And so we'd grown a lot in 2019, and then the first sort of 3 months of 2020 was pretty rough. But then people started to come to us and find us because of the fact that we allowed you to teach anyhow, anywhere.
Yeah. Mate, So
Oh,
I
no,
keep going.
I'm almost finished. I was going to say we had body weight, then we had strength, and then towards the end of 2020, we introduced a mobility program and a functional step program. And now we've got a cycle program, and we're about to launch our pilot phase of a MMA sort of combat style program. So we've got 5 formats, soon to be 6. And as of last year, we put them all under the same membership. So our instructors get access to everything that we create right back to our original. So for Shift, we're up to 50 workouts, and they get that for either sort of, I don't know, in dollars, it's like $15 for a single format or $25 for a multiple format if you sign up to the annual. So there's like 150 workouts immediately, and we drop a new one in every 2 weeks.
Okay. So thanks for coming on the show. That was fantastic. This is the Group X podcast. Mate, that was awesome. That you've just given me exactly what I wanted to be able to start this off, which is fantastic. So I'm going to rewind you and take you right back to your Les Mills stuff, and I want to go through most of this if I can remember bits and pieces. The
Sure.
first thing I ask you is, when you were teaching at Les Mills Auckland, what is that experience like? Now, you know, we as instructors, as guys here in Australia, we see the masterclass filmings, and I'm going to say a lot of the people here, that maybe there's some that were able to get over when filming was done in Studio One and that kind of stuff. But obviously we know that's changed now. But being up on stage teaching at Auckland, what was that experience like for you?
I mean, there's nothing else. Like in my whole time teaching, like my big Les Mills teaching experiences are the best ones. I've moved on in terms of what I want to kind of bring to the fitness industry now, and I'm a lot less kind of ego driven. But being up on stage in front of loads of people, having practiced really hard and hitting all your points and knowing exactly what you're doing, there's no better feeling. The other good thing about like Les Mills has changed. I just spent a number of months in Auckland, and so I got along to Studio One, and it's moved on. It's not like it was. I think I was there in the kind of golden area of characters and charisma. Like I was there with Mike. Like I was one of the teachers that was teaching at Studio One, and you know Mike McSweeney and Susan Renato would be practicing body pump the class before my body attack and that kind of thing. And so it was before the coaching model came in, and I actually think the coaching model is great, but it was back in a time when, in order to be a good instructor, you had to just know your choreography, be a good teacher, and have charisma, but everybody's way of doing it was different. And for better or worse, I think that in the late 2000s, rolling out a coaching model flattened everybody to teach the same. I think we're coming back out of that now. But it was a time when, you know, there was just so many quirky characters and so many laughs on stage, and it maybe wasn't quite as sort of professionalized as it became, but it was more fun. And I kind of got I would say that like the period where sort of 2000 to 2005, which is when I was traveling to Auckland and teaching in Auckland, or 2007, 2000, early 2000s, it was the golden era. It was kind of when they'd made their mark internationally, but hadn't gotten so big that they had sort of started to really professionalize and streamline. It was fantastic. I got to learn from the best in the world at doing what I loved doing. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't be here today if I hadn't just been in that right place at the right time, I think.
Yeah. So you went from NZ over to the UK to play with Les Mills in the UK, so to speak.
Yeah.
How was that experience going from NZ to UK? Now, UK is a complete different country, complete different vibe, complete different. Yeah.
Really interesting, and I don't think entirely positive. I would say not positive for me. Like I had a great time. Like the team were great, but the industry. The weird thing, you would know this being in Australia. The weird thing about New Zealand is, outside of Les Mills, it's a very small fitness industry. There's not like a big freestyle sort of instructing community. Now there's a few boutiques that have started to build up, but more or less Les Mills, because it is huge, it is nationwide, and because it's honestly just excellent quality, it sucks all the oxygen out of the industry generally. And so when I got to the UK, there was it almost it was quite weird, because you had Les Mills and the people that did Les Mills, and then you had a really, really strong and sort of well-founded sort of freestyle and freelance instructor community. And they really didn't like interact very well, and there felt like there was a lot of animosity, and it was so weird because I'd only ever known Les Mills, and so my entire sort of instructing life was Les Mills. And then I got there and realized that there was this whole other world that I wasn't really that familiar with, even though I did actually start freestyle. Like that was my initial start off for that first 6 months. But it's interesting. Like as someone that's kind of studied like brands and how they build things, Les Mills did this amazing thing by creating the tribe, which I know is a term that they have moved away from more recently, but they did such an amazing job of creating a tribe where everyone really loved the brand. It was such a love mark. But I think it also, like you see it with all manner of things. Like when you create something that is really strongly tribal, there's quite a lot of like anti-other thingsness. And that was moving to the UK was my first sort of knowledge of, you go to a convention and then there'd be a Les Mills hall and there'd be a freestyle hall, and the freestyle instructors and the Les Mills instructors wouldn't really interact that much. And it was just really weird to me because we're all kind of part of the same industry. And I think that benefited Les Mills a lot in building this amazing global brand that people really loved. I don't know that it was necessarily great for the industry to create this wall between what we do, which I think is coming down. Like, I think we're becoming more cogent of the fact that we're all participants in trying to make society healthier. And I don't think that, I certainly don't think that Les Mills pushes that agenda. I don't know that they ever deliberately did. I think it just came from building such a strong brand and a strong tribe. But certainly the instructors within it and some of the trainers in the Les Mills UK trainer team, for example, were very, very tribal about what was Les Mills and what wasn't. And it was a bit weird to me. And then to answer your previous question, like going from teaching to 200 people in Studio One to teaching at the most popular gym in central London that had 25 people was a bit of a buzzkill, if I'm being completely honest, because I kind of got into teaching because I really loved there was a little bit of ego and a little bit of wanting to be on the stage. But like as I said, Bevan was kind of the person that I not modeled my teaching on, because we're very, very different instructors in terms of style, but like the energy that he created and the vibe that he created. And I still think that he's like the absolute master of doing this. And like being at the center of that type of energy at like a Les Mills studio, this applies at Australian gyms as well, because what you have to remember is that New Zealand and Australia have space. So they have big gyms, so they have big studios, so they have big classes. And in central London, there are hundreds of gyms and they're all tiny. And so it's just a much different way of teaching. And like a way that I didn't love as much, because fortunately I was still getting to travel and do like quarterlies and things like that. But yeah, it was a little bit of a reckoning for me, because I didn't realize how good I had it when I was in New Zealand and how much more difficult it is in somewhere like the UK, where if you're a full-time instructor, which again, not something that people really did in New Zealand, you were usually a instructor plus maybe a PT, or you worked outside the industry. Whereas in the UK, there were lots of people that were full-time instructors, meaning that they were trudging from gym to gym, teaching to 5 people, and they were all a bit miserable. My understanding of the industry was just that it was a little bit more miserable and wasn't as joyous, because the pay wasn't very good, but the conditions were a little bit worse, which is, again, I don't think that there's a way to solve that, because you can't make the gyms bigger. I just think that so when I launched Shift, it was like, let's solve some problems so that instructors can be happier, because I can't make their classes bigger because the studios have capacity issues.
Yeah. I think that what you touched on there with the divide between freestyle instructors and Les Mills instructors. When I first started back in the early 2000s, as I said before we started this, all I knew was Les Mills. You know, I'd seen an occasional freestyle class or something like that, like freestyle cycle class or something going on. But it wasn't really until a couple of years in that I really started to feel and notice that divide. Yeah, you'd go to Philex, the big conventions here in New South Wales and Sydney.
2 vertical streams, right? The Les Mills event and the other event.
Yes, you'd have your big Les Mills stuff going on, and then there was also all the other stuff that was happening. And some people would do the crossover, because there were some instructors that took the skill set they had from learning the Les Mills ways of doing things and put their own flair onto freestyle. And those instructors were fantastic. But then you also had the instructors that had been around. I'm going to say as dinosaurs, but that's not what I want to try and say.
I mean, I think I probably qualify as dinosaur too.
Those instructors that have been around for a long time, that have been doing freestyle only, that are still there and still passionate. I remember going to one Philex event here in Sydney, and someone pretty high up in an organisation said to me, Tony, you realize there's more to Les Mills, don't you? There's more than Les
More
Mills.
to fitness than
Yeah. And I had that moment of realization of going, you're right. There is more. And that's not to say that Les Mills is bad. That's not to say that freestyle or anything else is bad. It was just, it opened my eyes up to make me go, there is more. There is a lot more. But and that's part of me doing Group X here is to get that spoken about more often, get more programs talked about more often, because here in Australia, we are dominant Les Mills.
Yeah, the funny thing is, and the irony of all of this is that, Lisa and Mark will go to IDEA to get inspiration for their own formats. Like, it's a weird thing where, like, it kind of got that sort of opposition to other things and being fully involved in Les Mills, I guess because people love it. Like, the programs are great and people love them. And I I love Body Attack. I struggle to do it now for injury reasons, but like, that was my thing and I loved it for a long time. And I still do it. I still do every release when it comes out on demand. I still went to Lisa's class when I was in New Zealand. But I think that people sometimes forget that there's a world out there, and also that that there are interesting things. And Les Mills is pulling inspiration from other things. Like, Les Mills created Body Pump, but most of their other formats since then have actually been inspired by freestyle or other innovations that they have then brought into the Les Mills fold. But you get some instructors that are like, oh, they're copying Les Mills. And it's like, for example, strength development, 42-minute workout that is interval based and not to the music. That's Lift. We've been doing that for 5 years. Am I saying that they've copied? Absolutely not. But they're drawing inspiration from the same things that we're drawing inspiration from, and that's where strength group workouts are going.
No, maybe this is embarrassing for me to say, but I'm going to share it. When I started working for Les Mills in Canberra in 2012, I worked out that there were a whole lot of other gyms apart from Fitness First.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was inducted into Fitness First. If you wanted to teach, there were Fitness First gyms around everywhere in Sydney. You went from one to another, and that was it. And now, as I said, until I started my first role as New South Wales account manager for Les Mills, and I got given a list of customers that were in my territory, and I was like, there's a club in Dubbo. Oh, there's a club in. Oh, wow. There's actually clubs in Wollongong where I grew up. I had no idea, things like that there were blinkers that were on. That I'm not saying that instructors out there are that same way, but they are.
Yeah, but I think it's like, you love what you love, right? It's like supporting a team. It's just that when you support a team, you're aware of the other teams, maybe. And I guess that, like, when Les Mills created this whole microcosm that people loved, right? Like, your team was Body Combat, and the other team was Body Attack, maybe. Like, I mean, they did an amazing job at creating an amazing brand that's obviously, like, conquered the fitness world. So you can't take anything away from that. Sometimes I get frustrated because I want instructors. Because the other thing that, like, the downside now that they are pivoting into consumer stuff is that instructors are now feeling like that same kind of tribalism is now causing instructors to be really angry about certain things. And I'm like, instructors, Les Mills is a business. They want to reach as many people as possible and make as many people fit as possible. And that's a very worthy aim. And they are moving into the on-demand side. And instead of complaining about how the programs have changed or how the music isn't what you wanted, give something else a go. I see on Facebook, like, because I have to be on Facebook, the same people moaning 5 years later because there hasn't been a good body pump since '86. Well, why are you still teaching it? They're moving on because they want to attract, like, more audience. And, like, if you don't like it anymore, don't do it anymore.
You have a choice.
Yeah, exactly.
You 100% have a choice. You can do what. Yeah, it's I'm glad you said that, because there are some Facebook groups that I'm part of as well that I just sit back to watch and watch this and
emoji.
It's the same people, the same stuff, and even if it's not the same people, it's different people saying the same stuff. And it's like, guys, you as you said, you have a choice. The exercise or fitness industry, especially in the group exercise space, there are more and more programs popping up as we look around.
I used to look at it and be like, oh, this might be good for me if people are starting to dislike it. I'm actually at the point now where, like, if you're listening to this and you're a Les Mills instructor and you're really unhappy with sort of the direction of the program, don't complain about it online, because people are pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into it. And if you don't like it anymore, don't do it. Try something else. Don't necessarily try what we're doing, but there are other alternatives. But, like, Les Mills are doing great stuff. They're creating like great programs that people love. And they're also, with the partnership with Adidas, it's very clear that they're trying to like lock into Gen Fit. And that is all a worthy aim. Sometimes you age out of things. Like I will be honest and say that I don't like some of the programs as much as I used to, but I'm also old now. and I have to accept that. And I think that like instructors, can sometimes like the amount of negative comments that I see online makes me unhappy because I think it detracts from the fact that you have people who are wanting to make the world fitter, who are doing great work. And if you don't like it anymore, then don't do it.
This is the Group X podcast.
I want to talk to you about your traveling overseas. And when we're talking about you move from NZ to the UK, you're like, I'm just going to go away to Spain or wherever for a week. For some of us here in Aussie, is so foreign because it's like you did what? You just got on a plane and you went to another country.
Well, it's not that difficult. Well, it's more difficult now, but it wasn't that difficult when you were in London.
No, that's the thing I think I love so much about Europe is the fact you can get on a plane and travel 2, 3, 4 hours and be somewhere where they speak completely different language to where you woke up in that morning.
They still teach in English. Well, like they don't teach in English, but like certainly in Les Mills, because also the cues, the cues and the moves, because Les Mills pushes them out. So like I could pretty much teach a class in English and have a participant in any of these countries. Instructors for sure, participants probably still. The other thing you learn when you're traveling a lot is that English is probably the best language for directions. It's short, it's sharp, and it's direct. Like you hear someone teaching in French and it's just like, blah, 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 blah. There's not a lot of vocal variety, which is why they then go, stop, super.
I love that. But how many countries do you think you traveled to when you were Les Mills UK? Like how often and where did you, or is it a better question to ask, where didn't you go?
So with Les Mills, I did all of the United States and I did like most of Europe, sort of Scandi countries and most of the places around Europe. That would be it. I did sort of Australasia, America and Europe would be the areas that I traveled to. So I didn't do everywhere. I've kind of been everywhere on my own volition. So like one of my favorite things to do when I travel actually is go to gyms. I was just in Tokyo and going to the gym there was a trip because it like is this meshing of what you normally do in a gym, but then you have to take your shoes off and swap your shoes. And there's like this long corridor between the changing rooms where you kind of walk down and then you put your shoes on at the end because obviously their culture is sort of very different. And going to a gym and each place I go, like it's not because I'm obsessed with working out, even though maybe that's a little bit of a thing. But I find that the going to the gym and all these different cultures is really funny because the gym is a consistent thing that you can do in every culture. It's like eating dinner. Yes. It's something that everybody does, but that everybody does a bit differently.
Yeah. I like that. It's you got a favorite country you went to when you were traveling?
Generally or to teach in?
To do your module training in?
Spain.
Okay.
I loved the Spanish team were great, and I love my time in Madrid and Barcelona. Plus, it was when I was young, and Spain is great for partying. So I would teach at the Les Mills quarterly all day, and then we'd go clubbing all night.
So now I understand when you said before that you didn't start work till 9:30 on a Monday. Now I understand why. Yeah.
There was some really, really good clubs in Barcelona, and I had a very good friend, Sarah, who was one of the trainers there, and we would I'd fly across and we'd train all Friday night, and then we'd do the quarterly on Saturday, and then we'd go out till Sunday morning, and then I would rest, fly back, and go back to work. As I said, this is mid-20s. I don't have that kind of energy now, and I haven't for a long time.
Love it, but thanks for the honesty and truth. So next in your career, I'm going to go back, rewind my brain back. You went over to Beachbody.
Yeah.
Now, this is a really embarrassing question for me. Is Beachbody still around? Because I don't hear of it here in Aussie. Yeah,
so interestingly, they were really massive for a time because they obviously had P90X, which I think was household name in America, less of a household name outside of America because they didn't have quite the same presence. And then you had Insanity. Insanity changed along with CrossFit, which kind of happened around the same time. I would say that Insanity and CrossFit, which were both kind of late 2000s, when they really came to prominence. They changed fitness for a number of years. I think we're now seeing a correction back to less extreme forms in the last sort of a little bit pre-pandemic and certainly post-pandemic, now that people are realizing what fitness can do for health a bit more. But like Insanity, changed the game. It like was the first proper widespread introduction of HIIT. And like the grip programs came after Insanity, and I was at Les Mills at the time. So I know that like through the Beachbody partnership, Les Mills was seeing that they needed to do something that was hitting that same mark, which is how sort of grip came along.
Yeah. What was your role at P98 at P90X?
Beachbody.
Beachbody, sorry, because I remember P90X when I was in Sydney, and as you said, the late 2000s. There, I remember, and I don't know how it even came to be in my mind, or because it wouldn't have been through Fitness First or anything like that. Maybe it's just something that popped up.
Yeah, so actually you asked the question, which is, do they still exist? The answer is yes, and they have just rebranded to Body, BODI, which is Beachbody, which was what they used for their on-demand, Beachbody On-Demand Interactive. But they have basically for a long time at Beachbody, right back to when I was there, people realized that Beachbody, while it was a strong brand and people knew it, maybe wasn't the type of brand that was going to be worthwhile long-term as people's perceptions about what was important. And even then themselves, they were creating workouts and meal plans, and like they used before and afters, which I always hated and I would never ever use for shift. It's not that I don't like think that people get into fitness for that. I know that before and afters are very motivating. It's just not what I want to bring to the world, is making people think that fitness is a before and an after. For me, fitness is a during and an always. But they've rebranded to be Body, and they've got a new tag. They're really big at taglines. They're an American company. Health Esteem, which is then more around, creating healthiness, which regardless of whether or not you see it as a cynical marketing ploy, which may be the case, or a genuine reflection of what society is looking for in fitness, that's why you wouldn't see it anymore, because they used to have Beachbody and Beachbody coaches who sold Shakeology, which was their meal replacement / fitness shake superfoods formula. They're now Body and their Body partners. So all of the people with it, it's a multi-level marketing company at the end of the day. It's a bit like Avon. Some people hate them. Some people like them. I've seen both sides of it. But so moved there and back before the digital transition. So when I went there, they were still primarily doing DVD packs. That's how old I am. That was 10 years ago, actually. It was, Did
you ever get any VHS? Now that's where I go back to.
I do actually. I had tapes, cassette tapes too.
Oh God, that's showing your age, right? Okay. Love it. So your role at Beachbodies, what was your role there? What were you doing with them? Rolling out.
Yeah, so I started as country manager for the UK. It was the second country that we rolled out for the Beachbody Live. So I was in charge of rolling out the Beachbody branded formats to the in-class solution, and then that kind of grew to be sort of EMEA and international, but we never really expanded outside of the UK for the reasons I said before. The company decided they wanted to double down and reinvest in the US, because the US is just such a massive market with so much sort of need for fitness and opportunity. So basically that was my role. They had done the first, I think, 2 or 3 rounds. They'd bought a company called Powder Blue, which was Shalene Johnson. She created this program called Turbo Kick, and she was a Beachbody super trainer. They'd bought Powder Blue and her instructors. They were really big, particularly in the West Coast of the States. And so they brought on these master trainers who were the equivalent of national trainers in the Les Mills parlance. But it was quite a different style in that they actually called them, before they came to Beachbody, area promotions reps, or something like that. Basically, they would be responsible for setting up a training and then promoting the training and bringing people in and then doing the training. And it was quite a different approach to Les Mills, where Les Mills was very much kind of, we're about education and we're about creating, getting people through. The education for Les Mills is still absolutely world class. Like a well-trained Les Mills trainer is a fantastic educator in those programs. And the Beachbody trainers, they weren't the same. They hadn't been through the same rigorous training. They were salespeople who also trained people in the brand. So that was I had to get over that hump initially, because I was like, wow, I've really spent sort of 15 years of my fitness life learning like how to be really, really sharp around education. and they weren't very. So the good thing is that I kind of got to bring a lot of that into the programs that they were doing.
Yeah. Wow. I like that. That's nice to hear, and I suppose there's a bit of an insight into other programs. And would you say that's where you first got your inkling to, hey, I need to do something myself? I've got a passion to want to do something, and I can see that space that's available in the market?
Yes and no. Like I was working with Lisa, and sort of I always used to teach with her and give her feedback on Body Attack, and then I started to create some of the content at Beachbody Live. So did the reframing of P90X into something different, and was participating in all of the sort of feedback sessions for all the programs. People may take offense to this, but in my view, fitness is fitness. A burpee is a burpee. No one is reinventing the wheel when it comes to fitness. What I wanted to do was reinvent the solution for instructors to make their lives easier. That was really where it came from. I know what good education is. I know how to write a good education and deliver a good education. But at the end of the day, and we talk about this in our training, there is a good way to teach a squat, but once you learn how to do that, that is it. There's a best practice way to teach a squat, and no matter how good you are or how basic you are, that setting up of the squat is the same for an international master trainer and a new person doing their certification. It's only the layers on top of that, like if you're using Les Mills coaching cues, layers on top of that, and when you bring your own personality and stuff to it. So the gap that I saw in the market was a couple of things. One was Les Mills has a license fee. So the big thing about Shift is we don't have a license fee, which is becoming more of an issue post-pandemic when gyms just have less money to spend. So it was, Les Mills is a bit of a closed ecosystem because it has a license fee and it only releases content 4 times per year, and the content is really time-consuming to learn. It's fantastic, but that those things are also true. So they're not criticisms; they're just kind of observations of the business model.
Exactly.
Yes. And then when I was at Beachbody, we had some of the similar constraints, but we'd solved some of them. There was no license, so you could teach anywhere, but we were still sending everything out in paper. And to be honest, I thought that the content at Beachbody could be better, and I thought that I could do better content than Beachbody. I didn't think I could do better content than Les Mills, but I thought that I could do better sort of instructor solution. So I'm going to create some content, but the focus is really going to be on making it really cost effective for instructors and making it really simple to deliver and teach. And that was kind of the focus. And I love our content now because I've brought on sort of other people who are better than me at producing content and creating content. And we now have a 5-person creative team. I'm very, very proud of our content, but it wasn't the drive to create my own thing, because at the end of the day, a hit workout is a hit workout. I think we're actually quite creative with the workouts that we do. And I see some of the stuff that we've been doing for a while creeping its way into Les Mills, and Zumba just released a mobility format, which literally is exactly the same sort of major points as ours. Ours is mobility, stability, and flexibility. 30-minute workout that you can use as a 12-minute bolt-on. They've just released a format which is mobility, stability, and breath work, which is a 30-minute workout with a 12-minute bolt-on. So again, whether or not, I'm not suggesting anyone's copying anyone, because the fitness industry, no one's making anything new, but we're all drawing from the same needs of the industry.
And I look at that and I think, you know what, even if they are, I'd be proud of that.
Because completely, 100%. And the other thing is, and this is sort of getting back to some of the tribalism of instructors, we're not reaching the people we need to reach. There's room for everybody. I welcome Zumba and Les Mills and us and any other providers into the same room so that we can all work harder to reach more people. It's not a zero-sum game. We're only hitting 20% of the population in the very best case. So that's in the countries where the gyms have best penetration, for example, Australia and New Zealand, America, Nordics, and the UK, where it's kind of 15 plus. But even then, in best case scenario, you're hitting 20% of the population. That's 80% left to hit. So there's no need to worry if other people are copying or doing the same thing, because just put your own spin in it, and there's just so many people to reach.
Yeah. The thing, I love that you said that then, and I was going to bring it up as well in this conversation, is that no one owns the industry. No one owns group fitness space. The group exercise space isn't owned by anybody. There is enough space here for everybody to play. There's probably enough space for another 20 to 30, if not more, program providers to come along and go, hey, we've got something over here. It all comes down to, as an instructor, what you want, what you gel with, what you want to be able to teach. And nothing against what's happening here in Australia. I hope no one ever thinks that I'm poo-pooing what is going on here. But the we're not brainwashed. That's not even the right word to say, but it's just because we are so heavily dominant with Les Mills, people don't look elsewhere. They don't. You know, they're not looking for Shift. They're not looking for a State of Ride. They're not looking for Ride Revolution. They're not looking for Radical Fitness. They're not looking for anything else because, oh, well, that's what we teach. And a lot of it comes back to the clubs just going, that's what we want. You know, we know it's tried and tested. That's what we want. Clubs don't really want to invest in something to be a little bit different.
Yeah, this is actually a learning curve that we've been through. So we started. We're for instructors by instructors. That's kind of one of our taglines. It's very important to us that we're always servicing instructors, and our instructors. We have a really strong community on social media. We listen to our instructors. We survey them constantly. We're always using their feedback because we're kind of small and agile. Our instructors can go, we really want a workout that focuses on this. So during the pandemic, people were like, I need a workout that someone can do in their kitchen with, like, you know, Coke cans and beans and all that sort of stuff. And we could like film it, do it, send it out. Like, we're not doing the sort of cinematic presentation. All of our workouts, we did have like to consumer for a while, 2018, but we've decided that, you know, we just want to focus on being B2B. We do provide our workout content to gyms and some insurance companies and stuff. But like our workouts are 3 people on camera teaching as if you would teach in a class. There's no exciting camera angles. Part of that is because when we started out, we were bootstrapped, and so we didn't have the budget. Now we do have a bit more budget to work with, but we want to keep it simple because I hear the comments on Facebook about, like, I can't see the move, I can't hear the coaching. And so we're quite happy to keep our production simple because because, you know, we want they're workouts that are being taught as workouts, but like, because they're not, they don't have, they're not to the music, you get to see a little bit more of the instructor's particular style because there's not a certain thing they have to see at a certain point. I've gotten completely off topic of what I was talking about. Oh, gyms.
Mate, you've led me down to where I was going to go anyway, which is a fantastic segue for me, but you finish what you were going to say.
Yeah. So the thing about the industry in Australia and also in the UK to a degree that I didn't really realize. So we have now got like a full suite of formats. So we know that if we want to keep growing and keep bringing Shift to the world, that we need to have some gym partnerships. Speaking to gyms, I didn't quite realize how much gyms, people working for gym, because we were basically like, we are 10% the price. We're less than 10% of the price. We make instructors' lives easier. We provide more constant content. You've got all these pain points, but the thing is, it's like group fitness managers don't want to have to do any work. They want Les Mills to give them all the work. I mean, if you're a group fitness manager, I mean, it's true. So you have like the management going, we need to cut costs. And they're like, well, do I have to though? Because right now, for the last 10 years, everyone's done Les Mills. All of my instructors do Les Mills. So there's a real barrier to change. But unfortunately, for commercial reasons, I think that more gyms are starting to look elsewhere just because the license fee is expensive. It is. I mean, you can talk to anyone in the industry. The license fee is a challenge. So that's certainly been an opportunity for us. And we're not quite at the point, like I was really hoping that I was going to be able to tell you about a couple of very, very exciting sort of gym partnerships, but we haven't quite inked the paper, so I'm not going to. But if you're listening to this, very soon.
We'll be back for part 2, people.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the Group X podcast.
Mate, I love what you've just said then, because it gives me the segue into now. Give me more details about Shift. I want to know all the formats you've got. I want to know where it started. I want to know the first time you recorded, where you recorded and how it went. Were you happy with it? Was it like this podcast? The first one I did was absolutely shit, and I threw it away and come back 3 months later and did it again. How did it go?
So I finished up at Beachbody at the start of 2016, and then I spent sort of a few months working on our first We started with body weight only for the simple reason that we were kind of trying to emulate a Zumba model. Like it was a instructor first, simple training, 1 day, and then body weight, because body weight can be taught anywhere. So if you're going to do something that people can teach in a park, they can teach in a gym, they can teach in a school hall, that was the most obvious. We came up with the brand. SHIFT actually stands for Smart, High Intensity and Functional Training, which is a lol because almost nobody knows that. So I thought I'd come up with this really snazzy acronym that was like so on trend, and everyone just like when they learn that for the first time, they're like, oh, wow. so shame on me. So the first shoot, it actually went really well. We actually did the content shoot and then a brand shoot, and it was using a couple of the trainers who had joined me at Beachbody, like came along to SHIFT as well. And so in our first shoot, we had Sam. Sam still works with me, Sam Ryder. He's now a firefighter in the north of England, and he works on our creative team. And he's a firefighter by day, but actually more like firefighter by night. Yeah. And then Becky, another trainer.
Do they do 24-hour shifts over there, the same as what they're doing here now?
They do like 3 days on, some days off, I believe, and then they sleep at the station for those 3 days because they can be called out. They may get called out, they may not.
Sorry, segue there.
Yeah, and then Becky, who is the owner of who was a trainer with me, who was 7 months pregnant at the time, and she was on the modification. So right from the start, we were really focused on. I'd kind of got the inkling that like we had gotten a bit too extreme with exercise. So initially, the idea of SHIFT was that it was going to be not quite as hard as the Insanities and the Grits. Like it was designed for a slightly less conditioned audience, in the view that anyone can push it harder, but if you do really difficult and complex moves, you can't necessarily scale them back. So it was designed, all of our workouts are designed very, very progressively. And then the structure we do it is we focus on the 6 degrees of freedom, which is up, down, side, forward, back, twist, bend, side bend. So all of our workouts are formulated around that, except for lift, which is the 6 functional movements: squat, lunge, push, pull, hinge, twist. So those are the foundations. Those are what we do in the warm up. So the warm up is always a movement pattern in one of those dimensions. And then set 1, we build on it. Set 2, we build on it more. Set 3, we smash it. Meaning that if you're new, you can stop. You can like keep the warm up type of movement, or you can progress to a point where you can sort of like tag out and say that's enough for me, or you can keep pushing right through. And to be honest, that like a lot of what we do within SHIFT is really inspired by working with Lisa and Body Attack, because I think she's a fantastic choreographer and understander of human movement. She's always looking for other things to do. And so like for the bodyweight format, a lot of the inspiration was taken from, okay, it's not going to be choreographed, but like, so like a track 7 in Body Attack would be like a volleyball focused track. We would have a volleyball focused workout. And so the other thing is for our, this is going back to the original product. So we have an app. On the app, you can use any music. So you can use Spotify, YouTube, whatever. The app is an interval timer. And I'll give you some links. So if anyone wants to go and like do an app tour, they can check it out if this isn't making any sense. But essentially, anyone can teach SHIFT because it's not choreographed. So if you're a person who's done a fitness qualification, you're qualified to teach SHIFT because you sit there with a timer on your phone. And we also have a voice on or voice off option, meaning that if you want to have the voice on, you don't have to remember anything, because someone will go skater, and then you can just go, okay, skaters. And, you know, if you're new, it might not be the smoothest thing. And we have the option to turn voice off so that you're an experienced instructor. You can turn that off and own the experience. But at the end of the day, what we also realize is that a lot of gyms in particular, they're using brand new PTs to teach classes and pay their rent. They're using like front of house staff if they're a budget chain. So we wanted to create something that a really good instructor like me and people that come from my background could own, but a brand new instructor could still deliver. Because that's one of the problems that we saw with Les Mills, is that like Les Mills training creates good instructors, very good instructors. But the problem is that not everyone's a very good instructor. And it's a high bar, and it's a bar that's too high for a lot of gyms' talent levels. So we started with SHIFT, and then because it was going to be like a Netflix or Spotify model where you would get access to everything. So basically you're either paying us the monthly fee and you get everything like Netflix, or you stop paying and we just cut you off. So there's no risk to us for giving everything. It's not like Les Mills where they send it out and you download it. So we basically, our process is you train with us, you submit a short video. The video is only 5 minutes long. It's a scaled down version of what you would do with other formats, but basically it's just to demonstrate how to screen a room. You can deliver it safely, and then it's based upon skills active and reps and all that. They have a very specific kind of this is what an assessment should be. So we based it around that, but we made it as simple as possible. We're not saying that we're creating super high levels of instructing. We're trying to get you to a minimum that you can build on, but also our solution allows you to not have to work as hard. But because we give access right back to the start, once you subscribe, you get everything, which means that our first workout is Shift 101. It's the training workout. Everybody does it. 7 years later, they're still learning that one. It's all online now. We started with a day training, but we pivoted it online. And then every workout is unique and different. So if I think of the last 10 shift workouts, we have one that's like a pyramid focused workout, which is classic HIIT protocols. We had one that was sprint. We had one that was sort of sprint inspired. So it involved a lot of track training and track protocols, explosive plyometrics. We had one that was completely low impact and like a freestyle class. So it was like an add-on freestyle. We have completely low impact. We have core and cardio. We have some that are inspired by football, some that are inspired by rugby. We've got a catalog of, as I said, we're just released Shift 48, which is the chop, which is basically inspired by F45, that kind of training. So it's we're doing sort of slam balls and stuff. It's all imaginary, obviously, because it's bodyweight format, but they're always a 30-minute format. So for all of our formats, which I'll talk to in a second, we release one workout on the month, and then the following month we release bolt-ons, which are the sections of the workout. So if you're a Les Mills instructor, you're getting the individual tracks. And then with our app, you can build your own workout. You just download the specific things you want, throw it into a playlist like you would a playlist in Spotify or Apple Music, and then it just plays straight through. So you've got the option to either use our pre-prepared workout or build your own, and you can build it across the different formats that you're certified in. So you sign up with us, and you can sign up in 1, 2, 3, or the bundle. And then as you graduate, you have the choice to join up to squad, and we have 2 options for squad: single membership or everything. And if you pay for 2, you get 5, soon to be 6. And then once you've passed certification, you get access, and it never expires. So there's none, like both at Beachbody and at Les Mills, if you don't buy something if you don't attend this, you get decertified, you have to train again. We don't do that. Yeah. I mean, I always had a problem with that because you don't have to do your base fitness qualification again. Like once you get your level 2 or your with G something in Australia, right? It's not like if you don't, that always felt like a commercial decision, which I understand, but it didn't feel like it felt like a commercial decision to force people to spend money. And I didn't want to do that. So basically once you graduate with us, your graduation lasts forever. You can either be paying the monthly fee or not paying the monthly fee. But if you go on maternity leave, you just stop and start when you start teaching again, or for any other reason. So we started with bodyweight, and then we added strength format. The strength format is called lift. So the one is the thing that we use throughout all of our trainings, and then lift started as a 30-minute format as well. It was a bit more similar to what you'd see in like a grit strength. We pivoted away from that after about lift 10, we're now up to lift 30. So in 2019, we kind of looked at what was out there, and it was very important for me not to just copy Les Mills. Like no shade, but Mossa is just cheap Les Mills, right? Like it's kind of cheap Les Mills of 2007. They've kind of frozen what Les Mills was and copied that. But I was like, I don't want to copy Beachbody. I don't want to copy Les Mills. I want to create something that is really distinct. So we changed lift to be a 42-minute, 45-minute when you add a stretch, sort of studio-based strength and conditioning class. So it was strength development using studio weights. So time under tension protocols, but also we're again focusing on certain things. So we'll have like a metabolic workout where there's a bit of plyometrics involved, or we might have a lower body workout where there's no jumping, an upper body workout. We have some, sort of unilateral and stability focused workouts. Because we give you access to everything, we get to take more chances. So if we release something, we release 6 workouts per year in each format, which is across 5 formats, like 36 workouts per year. 6 formats, 36 workouts per year. But if our instructors don't like the June workout, they're going to get one in August anyway. And we make sure that they all, we give variety enough. And also if they don't like the June workout, they've got 28 workouts they can go back to. So that gives us the freedom to take a few swings. Not all the swings necessarily work, but they provide some variety.
One of the questions I was going to throw at you then was how often do the releases come out? So it's by month.
This is a very good question. So it started with shift every month. And then when we introduced lift, it was shift on the even months, lift on the off months. And then now it's shift on the first of the even. I could be getting this wrong, but it's mostly right. Shift on the first of the even, mind on the 15th, lift on the first of the, odd, lift on the first of the even, rise on the 15th of the even, and then ride gets lifts. Like we're basically releasing them every 10 days.
That's the easy answer. Every 10 days.
Like it's basically like every 14 days, but we do two sometimes, and we're about to pilot strike, which will be our MMA style format. So then we'll have 6, and to answer the previous question about what are our formats, so we have shift, which is smart, high intensity, functional training, body weight only. We have lift, which is strength development with studio weights. We have rise, which is functional training using a step. Some of our step classes are a little bit body steppy or freestyle steppy, and other ones of ours are a bit more like grip plyo, and some of them are completely different. So we just did a workout where we released an agility workout where we used the step for a little bit of it, but it was mostly using the rises in place of like cones or flags and doing agility work around that. We have mind, which is mobility, stability, and flexibility training. Mind was designed specifically because we saw a gap in the market, which obviously Zumba have seen too, around moving into sort of more recovery-based training. Also, because of our structure, we wanted to create something where if someone wanted to create a 45-minute class, they could use a 30-minute shift or lift and bolt on a mind section. So mind is a complement to all our other formats. Also, the other thing is, and this again comes for a little bit from my background, both at Les Mills and at Beachbody, is that I came from the essence of the program background where I wouldn't have put my hand up to train in something if I didn't think that I was going to be good at it. We are the opposite of that. Our approach is if you can teach shift, you can teach a flexibility class. And in fact, you should, because that gives you more opportunities to make money on the timetable. So we brought mind in as an idea of like, we want people to be able to deliver flexibility, mobility, and stability classes in a timetable or in their own community. And we also want our instructors to have as many different options to put their hand up on the timetable. So if you don't normally teach step, but you've got a Shift Pro subscription, you can just do a rise class, and we make it so paint by numbers that you can do it. Then we released Ride, which is it's a combination of performance and boutique cycling. Yes, we do pushes on the bike. No, they're not push-ups. If you don't like it, then go tell 70% of the cycling community around the world, because that's what people are doing. I already know that people are going to listen to this and going, push-ups on a bike. It's like, we're not cycling on the road. We're doing a workout in a dark room on a stationary bike. I actually looked at that at first and went, push-ups on a bike. But then I spent a year working at ClassPass. I was general manager for the UK. I can tell you the most popular cycle classes are rhythm-based ones that involve choreography. Flat. Like, it's a fact.
It's funny. It hasn't hit here yet.
They've
been around for a while. It's some have. When I say it hasn't hit here, there are some clubs out there that are doing it, but not many.
It hasn't hit New Zealand either, because all of the good cycle instructors are teaching RPM and sprint and stuff. Yes. Like there's a walled garden aspect to Australia.
Yeah.
But you look around the world. Like I was talking to the Stages guys, 65% of their cycle sales are sold for rhythm-based ride. And the rhythm-based ride, when I say rhythm-based ride, I'm meaning involving some ups and downs and jumps. And, cadences that would be contraindicated sort of 10 years ago. All these words. And then Although, interestingly, Les Mills, the trip does jumps and they do speeds. Like Les Mills is incorporating this into the trip. They're just keeping sprint and RPM like a bit more purist.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I could talk about cycle for a whole nother hour. It's actually it's my favorite format to teach now, not least because I am sort of my joints hurt and I can still push really hard on a bike.
I don't hear you on that. Yep.
Yeah. So but our cycle format is really interesting because it is music based. It's the only one where we have music. So we have a music partner called Pure Energy. It's really interesting. I encourage your listeners to like have a look at it. They might not like it because the music that we use is Pure Energy original music. So it's rights included. It's not popular music. So I'm of the view that if you want to teach a freestyle ride class, it's really easy. I know that when I stopped teaching at Les Mills, I taught a very like RPM programmed style of freestyle because it's pretty easy. Yep. At the end of the day, stand on the chorus, sit on the verse. Like it's not rocket science.
So the music is not original artists and it's cover music.
It is it is original artist music. It's DJs and music producers who create music specifically for the fitness industry. So it's not music that you're going to hear on the radio, but it is producers and DJs that work in Ibiza and travel the world and all that sort of stuff.
This is the Group X podcast.
So it's
for the Aussie market here. Would they need to pay a license fee to have that? Because here in no. Okay, so here in Aussie we've got One Music, which takes care of APRA and PPCA. They merged together at some point, probably during COVID or during lockdown stuff.
Yeah. So again, this is another topic I could talk about for years. I understand the situation in Australia. So basically, Pure Energy, who are our partner, they commission and fully buy out the rights for the music, meaning there is no additional rights to pay. So if you use Pure Energy music, you can teach it anywhere in the world because Pure Energy fully own it. There's no distinction between the public performance and the mechanical copyright, which is the distinction that you have in Australia and in the UK.
Yep. So clubs just need to pay their license fee to play music anyway, but they just don't need to pay the artist fee because it's classed as cover music as such. Because
there's no license fees for the music that we use at all.
In Aussie, though, you've got to pay a license to play any music whatsoever in any environment.
I don't think that you need to pay that license for Pure Energy, but I'm going to hold on that because I don't want to say something that isn't true. But I think that, like, I get what you're saying. You meaning you have to pay a license fee you have to pay a certain amount to play music on the gym floor, for example.
Yes, you got to pay something to play music in a cafe, that kind of stuff.
So if you use Pure Energy music, you pay Pure Energy, and you pay Pure Energy for access to their catalog, and there are no further fees. I can give you a link to check that up. But I'm very confident in that.
Okay, now let's suss that out a bit more because shit's changing here all the time with One Music. 1 week you'll look at it and go, "Hey, cool, I understand." The next week you'll be like, "Oh, I can't do that anymore." Oh, okay, fair enough. So
you know how you have like the owner of the copyright in the music, as in the written music, and then you have the owner of the mechanical copyright, and then you have the owner of the performance copyright. Yep. Pure Energy commissions the music and owns the whole thing. So when they sell you a song, they're selling you all of the rights in the song, meaning there's no additional rights to pay. But I would be happy to link you up with Andy, who's the founder of Pure Energy, and maybe you can do an episode on fitness music.
I've listened to the one that you did with him. I'm pretty sure he did. But I would love to reach out to him again because I think that's especially here in Aussie, I think there's a space for all of that to happen. So
so like the interesting thing about music is like for some people it's never going to be as good as original artist music, and it's never going to be as good as cover artist music. And we accept that because what we're wanting is to create a thing that an instructor can teach online, pre-recorded, and in the gym. Also, and I feel pretty strongly on this, and if you've listened to the podcast that I've done on music, instructors have to listen to the music they teach hundreds of times in their earbuds in the car. Participants only hear it in the class. And so instructors' view of the music is so like skewed versus what the average participant thinks about. And that if you go to if you go to like a strength and conditioning class or a metabolic class or an F45, you will recognize some tunes, but they could play this fitness music and it would not derogate from the value of the class or the experience of the class in any way. If you're an instructor and you have to teach that class 5 times in a week, sure, you want to hear your Rihanna song, but the class doesn't. And I think that this is a real, and as you see, like Les Mills and everybody, music licensing is becoming much more difficult. The reason is because everybody wants to take their clip of the ticket. And moving online has meant that music companies and publishers have realized that there's many more ways that they can get some money out. So, people complaining about music on Les Mills, it's because it's not their fault. They would still like to use the same music they wanted to use. They just can't provide you with your content for the same price if they're also going to get the original music. It's like, unfortunately, that's the way it's going. And in the old days, you could put it on an album and you couldn't really track it. But now with digital tracking and with copyright infringement software online, you can't get away with what you used to get away with.
Yep. You can buy a CD years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a cassette. Stop it. Oh, wow. No, look, I appreciate that. That was going to be the question I was asking you as well. And I think you sort of alluded to it or you answered it. It's choreographed, but not pre-choreographed. So it's not on the beat of the music. The workout design is there for what you're doing, but it doesn't need to be with the music as such. Because you're saying that I could use, so I could use my music and not the music that is on
Correct.
the app.
Not for Ride. Ride is a different kind of thing, and it has this very, very unique app where it there has a clock in front of you, and you've got 15 seconds, and you can have the clock connected to Bluetooth. And check it out if you want to check it out, and you're a cycling instructor. I recommend it, even if you just want to look at it for this is an option out there that I would never choose to take because I love teaching my original artist music. But yeah, for our other formats, it is pre-designed. It's an interval format, and you can use whatever music you want. We create a matching playlist using Pure Energy music for every workout. Our instructors can sign up to Pure Energy and get access, so they can sign up to the Pure Energy app, which is a separate relationship to us. But our instructors, we have some that use Pure Energy, we have some that use Power Music, we have some that use Muscle Mixers in the US, we have some that live in countries where there are no rights issues and they use Spotify or whatever they want. But yeah, you can use whatever music you like. My theory was that instructors can put their own stamp on a workout by choosing their own music, and if they want to do that, they can do it. We obviously create online content that we give to our instructors as a learning tool, similar to what Les Mills and everybody else does. And we also put that out on Wix, Virtual, and Fitness on Demand, and we have platform partners, so it plays in gym. So we were creating playlists for that anyway, and so we've just partnered with Pure Energy so that the instructors can get access to those playlists, and those playlists match the workout specifically. So we will have a song, and in the transition from the warm up into set one, the song will change, and so it's not to the music, it's not to the phrase, but it is to the song. And also, when I teach, I always teach set up to the beat. So the BPM of our matched music is the right BPM for the set. And the way it works is, I use the BPM as a setup phase way of doing it, of teaching. So I can teach phonetically, I can coach the move. And then gradually, as the intensity rises, you race the beat. Which is similar to I think a lot of people teach, and it's similar to what Lisa introduced into Body Attack for some of the tracks and the way they do grit. You use the beat to kind of mark out we're going to do a burpee, so squat, plank, squat, stand, and then you race the beat later on when you want to drive intensity.
Cool. Hey, instructors wanting to find out more, what's the best way for instructors to find out more to be able to teach shift programs here in Australia?
Sure. So 2 things I would do. One is I would go to www.shiftfitness.net. That's shift with a 1, not shift fitness, as sometimes I say when I'm rushing, with a 1. SH1FT Fitness.com. We have a webpage that we have a website that contains everything you need to know. We have a very, very in-depth FAQ section at the bottom of our front page that no one has ever looked at, which I think is the way with FAQs, but we've answered every question you could possibly have, but you probably won't get there. And what else I would do is I would, if you're on Facebook, log in and join up to the Shift Forum. So we have a community of instructors. It's instructors and potential instructors. So we don't lock this off to just people who are certified. It includes people that aren't certified. Great community, fantastic. There've been times during the pandemic where I did think like, is this too hard? Can I do this anymore? We have a development agency based in the Ukraine, and like we had like a lot of our development got delayed as they were fleeing war. And there've been various moments where I've been like, oh, running your own business is really, really hard. What keeps me in the game is A, that I love it, and B, that our instructors are really fucking awesome. So I would go in there, but they're also really honest. So if you don't want to take my word for it or read what we're putting on the page, go into the forum and ask people their honest thoughts, and they'll give you their honest thoughts, good and bad. We're not like, we don't do everything perfectly, but we do everything thoughtfully. So there's certain things that will be like, look, we just can't provide that or don't do it for the reasons that like as follows. So, we're not for everybody, but if you're an instructor who wants to get loads of content and bring something new for the cheapest price in the industry, and we can stand behind that because we know we are. Oh, and also I have created, so we do this other thing, which I think is kind of unique in the industry. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee for our training. The reason for that is that it's quite expensive. Like if you train in one format, we're really cheap, but it's still like, 169. I always get confused with pounds and dollars, so don't quote me on it. But let's say, $199 for one format. That's still a lot of money if you're not too sure for an instructor. You have to teach quite a lot of classes to pay that back. So we have a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can sign up, take a look, you can train, you can submit your certification, you can sign up to our squad. And if in the first 30 days you decide it's not for you, you can cancel and we'll refund you everything. The reason for this is because we stand behind our product, but also it's not necessarily for everybody. And we don't want the price to stop you from giving it a go. So we've actually created I created a discount code. So Group X podcast, one word. We can put it in the show notes for this episode.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to give it a try, that'll give you 25% off. But then whatever you do end up paying, so depending on how many formats you choose to train in or the bundle, it's different prices. That'll give you 25% off training in whatever you choose. And you've also got 30 days to try it. And if you don't like it, send us an email. We refund everything.
That's fantastic.
So no risk.
One, I'll say thank you as well. I'm saying thank you on behalf of the listeners as well that are going to jump on there. And guys, get on there and give it a shot. One thing I would love to see is some clubs in Australia teaching the programs. I know I've seen a couple pop up here and there. It's sporadic, and there is a few.
We have a few instructors in Australia and a few sort of smaller scale clubs that are teaching out. We just did a deal with a club down in Tasmania who've got a couple of really good facilities, and they're doing a really good job at training their instructors. We haven't focused so much on Australia for all of the reasons that you've already talked about, which is that like everybody is so in depth with Les Mills, but we do have a lot of passionate instructors sort of teaching individually. But it's a market that obviously I would love to be more active in New Zealand and Australia. We have lots of opportunity in UK and America that we're focusing on at the moment. But I agree. I'd love to see it in more gyms in Australia for sure. So if anyone wants to reach out to me and talk about how we can do that, reach out to me.
Yeah. Look, I'll just say, don't forget about us here in Aussie, where we might be down under, but we're still here and
I would never do that.
But no, look, that's something I'll have a chat to you offline about as well, because I'd love to be able to help in some way to promote and get it out there. So,
cool.
Well, thank you. Actually, before we go, there is one last question that I want to ask. I try and throw it at everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. What needs to change in our industry?
Oh, I mean, there's lots of things, but if I could change one thing, and thinking about the audience that you're listening to, it would be, I think instructors just need to accept that being a group fitness instructor is not what it was 20 years ago. And there's things you can't change, and you cannot change pay rates. You're never going to get more for a class. It's going to be marginal increases, but you're just not. The pivot to digital has meant that that's not going to happen. It's only going to get sort of more of a struggle. And so if you really are passionate about teaching group fitness and being a group fitness instructor, you need to find the good in it and find the things that you like and focus on that, not focus on the things that are negative. Because honestly, like it's a challenging industry. Like, you know, a new person coming through, they're going to be like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to be hot and do things on TikTok and I'm going to make money that way. And, you know, like, but it's just the reality, right? Like I think of Joe Wicks, who's like the biggest person in the UK and has taught the biggest online class. It pains me that he just goes high knees, higher, higher. I spent 10 years learning how to not only coach a high knee, but deliver a different cue every time. Every time I was on a Les Mills video, I would give a different high knee cue. I'll give a different visual cue. Joe Wicks, most successful ever digital fitness class, just says high knees, higher, higher, go higher. Like it drains, like it honestly kills me. But at the same time, you know, roll with it. That's life. And so I think the biggest thing I would change is instructors like letting go of what they thought they would, of what they want this to be based on what it used to be, and embracing the opportunity that they have now, the opportunity to teach online and reach new people, the opportunity to use social media to your advantage, the opportunity to, if you love teaching Les Mills in a club, go to that club and teach a Les Mills class and be happy about it. Stop wasting time on being frustrated about things that you cannot change.
Will, mate, you've summed that up. Thank you. But mate, seriously, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat to me. I have seriously enjoyed the last hour and a bit of getting to know you, your journey, where you've come from and what you're doing now with Shift. And I sincerely wish you all the best for Shift. And I'm whatever I can do here in Aussie to help promote it and get it out there and see more instructors doing it, mate. Please, let's have a chat. Let's see what we can do.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm sure that you and your listeners now know that I have a lot of thoughts on group fitness and I'm never shy to share them.